Ba-da-ba-ba, ba-da-ba, da-da-da-da-da. I wanted to quickly talk about something super important, and I'm noticing more prevalent in the real estate market nowadays, especially my investor clients. Like, you really need to be careful. I'm going to tell you a story on how I literally saved my client from rental market fraud in the downtown core, and this is Toronto we're talking about. Scary times, and these things happen every day. If you have a real estate investment, it is super important that you protect yourself by doing due diligence. All right, so this single guy applies to this condo listing, and honestly, guy looks like a rock star on paper. Great income, great credit. Everyone on the rental application were actually real people. I checked it on LinkedIn, and they were real people. Before I get into the meat of it, a couple of red flags right off the bat. The fact that the tenant and their agent applied on a weekend and gave me some pushback because I wasn't ready to accept anything on a weekend, that's kind of weird. Listen, I can't do any due diligence on the weekend, so I'm not going to be accepting anything on the weekend, and I'm not going to be putting my client's property at stake just because this guy wants me to accept something on the weekend. So anyway, red flag number one. Red flag number two, they didn't see the property, which I don't like. Nowadays, that's not much of a red flag. That's pretty common. It happens, especially after COVID. But I don't know, especially because I saw his current address and he lives like down the street from this condo building. So like, there's no reason why he couldn't see the property unless he was in another country or something like that. I start by reviewing the application by sending the HR department an email in the email I said, hey, let's set up a call. And really in this email, I'm looking for a response back in writing, just to verify A, that this employer is legit and there's people actually working for this employer, and B, this is not just some fake like HR department that someone just made up. So anyway, they call me instead of emailing me back. They call me. And I asked them the verification questions, and everything went smoothly. Before I got off the phone, I said, hey, listen, can you just send me an email just confirming the guy's salary and the guy's length of employment, and we'll be all good to go, moving in the right direction. They said, yes, no problem. I'll send you an email, yada, yada. So we get off the call, and I continue to move forward with the application. And I do that right away by calling the co-op agent and say, hey, listen, everything is moving in the right direction. Let's set up a video call just so I can get to know the tenant and ask him a couple of other verification questions. So we set up a call. I ask a couple of other questions about his past landlords and yada, yada. Anyway, the call is later that same day. 6 hours has passed. I still have not received an email from the HR department. I found that a little strange. So I get off the call with the other agent, and at this point, I'm wanting to verify the tenant's previous two landlords, just to make sure this guy isn't like some terrorist and he's not going to like put body-sized holes in my client's condo wall. So anyway, I contact landlord number one, go straight to voicemail. It was like the voicemail was like not English. It was a little strange, muffling, and then hung up. Weird. Landlord number two actually answered, said, I'll call you right back, and hung up before I could even say something. Weird. About a half an hour goes by. I text the tenant's agent and I say, hey, couldn't get a hold of the two landlords. Do you have like an email or better number for these guys just so I can get a hold and actually verify them? So he says, yeah, no problem. I'll get that after the video call. So I said, okay. So we get on the video call, and before I get into this video call, I'm going to preface it like this. One, the tenant used a photo card on the rental application and not a driver's license, which is whatever. Some people don't have a driver's license. Two, they didn't say anything about a car on the rental application. Can you believe I get on the video call and this guy answers the call in the driver's seat of a car with his seatbelt on? All right, so right away, I get on the video call and it's a weird gut feeling. I'm thinking like, A, this guy didn't say anything about a car, and B, who uses a photo ID card and not their driver's license on a rental application? I don't know. I'm still gonna give this guy the benefit of the doubt, I guess, but red flags in the background. Anyway, so we're on the video call, so I bring the fact that he didn't include a driver's license. So I just quickly asked him, hey, can you do me a favor? Send me your driver's license just so I can cross-reference a driver's license. And I asked him about the car and he said he's not gonna be bringing a car or whatever. He actually brushed me off on both questions, or when I mentioned anything about a car, which is very strange. So before we get off the video call, and this is why I think the real estate agent was also in on it, because this guy starts saying, oh, tell them how much of a homebody you are and how much you clean with Mr. Clean, or something like that. He said something about Mr. Clean and being a homebody. The guy raves on about himself being a homebody and using Mr. Clean when he cleans and how he's a germaphobe, yada yada. I didn't find it that strange at the time, but it was strange now that I'm thinking of it. So we get off the video call, and keep in mind, up until now, I haven't got any call from this guy's previous landlord. I haven't got any email from an HR department. It's strange. So half an hour after the video call, maybe an hour passes by, I get a call from landlord number 1. This guy raves on about how good of a tenant he is, how much of a homebody he is, how much he cleans, and he uses Mr. Clean. He even used the word homebody and used the word Mr. Clean. I found that weird. And almost said like verbatim things that the real estate agent on the video call said, which is, again, strange. So red flags all over the place here. Landlord number 2 calls me and says sort of similar things. Didn't mention anything about Mr. Clean, but he mentioned something about like, this guy's a clean freak and a germaphobe and a homebody. So I don't know. 3 strangers that say the same thing about the same person. Like, who uses the word homebody anyway? Like, it's not that much of a common word. So red flags obviously in the background on my end. And at this point, I'm like, I don't know if like this guy is legit. So it doesn't end there. Now, one thing that I do, I take it a next step further, and this is the final boss. I cross-reference landlords' names with whose names are on property records. And only realtors have access to this property records that can see who owns any property in Toronto. So this is why I think the real estate agent was in on it, because there was the correct landlord's names on the rental application anyway. So I noticed that the property records and the rental application matched. Okay, so I was like, you know what, maybe I'm tripping out and maybe this guy is legit. So I took it another step further and I looked up the transaction history. His 2 previous properties, I looked at the transaction history, and I happened to see the listing agent on the transaction history was actually my friend, an old colleague of mine. So I said, you know what, sweet. I could just call my friend and ask him what his experience was with this tenant. So I call this guy. This guy is saying he is a nightmare tenant. He stopped paying rent in month 4. And he is not clean at all. They are having a hard time getting rid of him. Interesting. So, you know what? The guy's paperwork might have been right, but what was wrong was the names and numbers on the rental application. Long story short, honestly, landlords, be careful. You don't want to rent your place out to some random professional tenant. It is a nightmare getting these people out. Me personally, I use a 9-step verification process. I'm going to put in the link below or in the description. Take a look at it. You can use it for yourself, or if you want to rent your property, give me a shout. Take care.